Good afternoon, all you awesome people out there. My name is Scott Churchson. Alongside me over there is Mr. Obie Spencer. Down there is Mr. JD Walker. And over there, with that amazing backdrop that he always has back there and all the memorabilia that's way cooler than any of the stuff I've got, Mr. Brandon Kay. And welcome to the Sports Den on Spanglish World Network, Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. Kindly remember, if you haven't already, to download the Zingo TV app on the app stores of iOS and Android. When you download, kindly make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. Zingo TV, by the way, lastly, is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Gentlemen, how do you want to talk about some golf today? What do you think?
Sure, we can start with golf.
Let's roll with it. It's finally beautiful time of the year for golf. Anyway.
Yes, we can talk some golf today. We're going to talk a little Formula One, maybe a little hockey. One local hockey team is still in there. It's definitely not mine. But we can talk about that a little bit today.
Barely, but yes.
What's that?
Barely, but yes.
Well, yeah, but it's still better than my trash team. I'm sorry, our trash team. First, we're going to kick things off with a little bit of PGA right now. Obie, on your suggestion, a wise one at that, we have to go into a little bit of golf. So if you want to lead this off, I want to say a couple things later on, but please, the floor is yours.
Or at least it will be when you unmute yourself.
Yes, once you're unmuted. But
all right.
And let me kill this off. When you're ready, just keep talking.
All right, I can roll with it a little bit until.
Yeah, take it away.
Let me just start off by saying this, and this is so important to me. As a kid growing up in the 80s and the 90s, there were few golfers that had my namesake. We had Scott Simpson and Scott Hoke, and they were top 15, maybe top 20. I'd see them way down at the bottom. But number one golfer in the world right now is Scotty Scheffler. My namesake is number one, and also from Ridgewood, New Jersey. He's a hell of a lot younger than all of us, but local dude, Jersey dude, and he's got my name. So respect to that. We're finally on top again. But
yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, he's retains the number one ranking, although Justin Thomas was the one who came out on top at the PGA Championship this past weekend, winning his second major. And he came back from 7 strokes behind entering Sunday, shot a 65. And that was the biggest one-day comeback to win a major since 1999, which was the infamous Jean Van de Velde meltdown in the Open for Paul Lowry coming back from 10 shots back to win that. But we had Thomas winning in a playoff over Will Zalatoris, and that only happened because poor Mito Pereira out of I believe Chile had a double bogey at 18 with a one-shot lead, so he didn't even make the playoff. Talk about bad breaks.
Once that happened, then you really felt like, okay, this is a little bit more open season now, where anybody in that top 4 or 5 could ended up sneaking up, because they were all right in a 3-stroke clump.
Yeah,
where it could have been anody, and it was exciting.
Yeah, I was busy, so I didn't actually get to watch it this weekend, any of it. But that was some real entertaining stuff. I mean, anytime you have a duel on Sunday, playoff or not, is a good major in my opinion.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so especially for somebody coming back from 7 shots back, and you also had the sidebar storylines of Tiger shooting a 79 on Saturday after making the cut by 1 stroke and withdrawing on Saturday, which the headline ultimately says a WD next to his name. But for the fact that this is 15 months removed from him almost dying in a car accident, for the fact that not only is he there, but for the Masters and now the PGA, he made the cut at these events. So while he's as of yet, not in the conversation on Sunday as one of the leaders. Just the fact that he's even here is remarkable. And it's an interesting juxtaposition to the one who was not there, the defending champion of the PGA champion, Phil Mickelson, who has opted out and gone completely off the rails for this Saudi tour. And just the more you look at that, the more the crazier it gets. And the quotes that come out of both Phil and Greg Norman, each one is more disturbing than the one before it. And a new term that I learned for something that in recent weeks for something that's been going on for decades is the term sports washing when it comes to the things going on in Saudi Arabia. You could also say that Russia and China have done the same thing, read the Olympics and other World Cup and other sporting events. Either way, it's disgusting, so we won't get too far down that rabbit hole. But for Justin Thomas, PGA Championship winners in particular are often one-hit wonders. So while it's better than being a zero-hit wonder, as many golfers are, golfers like Ricky Fowler, Colin Montgomery, who never win a major, for somebody to win one, you have Justin Thomas was part of that one-hit wonder group, specifically the one-hit wonder PGA. Names like Keegan Bradley, they'll for whatever reason, the PGA Championship is often the place where a golfer will have the tournament of his life, have the weekend of his life, will win the event, and then you never hear from them again. So congratulations to Justin Thomas to now being a two-time major winner and getting out of that conversation. And his caddy, Bones Mackey, who famously worked with Phil Mickelson for 25 years, also now getting glory and apparently a little more respect from Justin Thomas than he did working with Phil. It's hugely disappointing to me because, I dabble a little bit in following golf because my dad was very much into golf, and Phil Mickelson was one of his favorite golfers. So for Phil to turn heel the way that he has is very disappointing as a fan.
And but the interesting thing about it is that golf continues, and this is curious, and I'm hoping to get your thoughts on this a little bit. I saw your comment. I'll put that in up a sec. But the TV ratings on golf, while they dropped a little bit, they still pulled in 1.5 million viewers on ESPN for a 0.9 rating. So it's interesting that golf is becoming one of the more popular sports again. And where it never used to actually have that kind of pull, now it's putting up solid numbers that honestly are on par to Sunday Night Baseball. And that's huge.
I'm not sure if that says more about golf or baseball or their demographic views.
Well,
I think it's a little bit of both.
It's a combination of all of those. I mean, for the fact that the people that are watching golf are primarily of a demographic that actually, still has cable. And is therefore measured in Nielsen ratings.
Fair. Obi's comment, guys win majors at the same rate they win regular tourneys. Thomas has 15 tourneys and not one hit wonder at any rate. So,
and that is absolutely true. But fair or not, Ricky Fowler has, I want to say about 20 or 30 victories. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but he's won a lot of off tournaments. So he's just never won a major, just like players in team sports that are great players, Hall of Famers, but never win a championship. Your Charles Barkley, Dan Marino, and so forth. The knock on them is always, they never won a title. So it's the same for these guys. That if it doesn't matter how many West to Bumble Squat Opens you win, if you don't win any of those four majors. Right or wrong, that is how it is.
Yeah, the idea of counting tournament wins, I know they do, but it's not especially even for a casual golf fan, let alone a devoted golf fan, I'm not really sure how heavy that argument is used to portray the best or stuff like that. It's majors. I mean, that's what it's the four majors. And that's what it is. And then you have like, the Ryder Cup and President's Cup and certain stuff like that. But it's the 4 majors, and that's where all the eyes are on.
Yeah, and as Obi pointed out, and as Obi just pointed out via text, as we're still working out the sound issues, that the rise of Tiger brought the conversation to majors and majors only, which is both yes and no. I think part of that comes from the fact that a lot of golfers aren't playing as many tournaments in a given year as they are. So whereas they would be playing in a tournament every week almost in the past, with Nicklaus and Palmer and Faldo and those guys from previous generations, you're not seeing that as much now. Which Tiger started it, and the rest of the tour followed, as it did with literally everything else in golf in the past 25 years. That it was almost like almost load management in a way, to borrow a team sport term, where saving up for the bigger tournaments, you don't need to fly all over the country, and you hold out for certain events, and that's been an issue for the tour as a whole, is bringing more attention to these to the non-major events. I mean, you have the next class of you have kind of the next ones off of, like, the next ones under the majors, things like the Memorial, the Players Championship. You'll have a few of those that they have some importance within golf circles, but not really in the the general sports conversation as a whole.
Like waste management, another one.
Yeah.
Some of these like lower tier major, or not even majors, but lower tier tournaments that do carry some weight. But I think it was a great tournament, and especially when you have these guys that are recognizable and they have a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of recognizability within just casuals, but just you see the same names over and over, and it's every major after major, and it draws you in. And I think a lot of this too, with kind of the resurgence or just another surgence of golf, I think pandemic was part of it. When you have to have isolating, what can you do to keep? You can go to the driving range, you can go on the course where social distance is built into the game.
Yes.
And I think that, you could, whatever the percentage is, it might be a small percentage, but the percentage itself, I think, is big, where a lot of more extra eyes or new eyes were turned onto the sport, and maybe took some eyes away directly from baseball with a lot of the stuff that happened. So I think it's like you said, JD, a combination of both MLB's mishandlings of things or incidents of certain things, but golf, I mean, I think has gone strong in the last couple of years.
You might have something there, because a couple of years ago, when during the summer months, a lot of people, myself included, were basically just being paid by the government to not go anywhere,
Right.
and frankly, a solid amount of money in the process. But if you were the kind of person who had time on your hands when the weather was nice and you were able to isolate,
and money to do so,
and the money to do so, and no responsibility, talk about this morning to somebody else, that, you wake up in the morning, you're like, what do I want to do today? Golf could easily have been that thing.
And I think, to put on one point, the timing of it, shutdown was March. That's when nationwide golf season is exploding. So you have all summer to get right into it, when quarantine and isolations was at its heaviest. You have the winter comes in, obviously the South you still play. And then the next summer, last summer, when it was kind of midway quarantine, kind of opening up again, you got, people got right back into it because they were hooked on the summer before. So I think that played a kind of a big part in this. And I mean, it could just be speculation. I could just be, out on a limb, but just in my eyes, I kind of think that's part of it.
There is definitely a factor to that, and those factors are true in certain, but golf is still a niche sport, especially where it is it's also hard to get younger generations and kids to play, because it is not very easily accessible because of the cost that is required for that. While you could say that about any sport, especially with the crazy, AAU and travel pay for play industrial complex that we have in American sports in particular, where something like soccer, which is played all over the world, and, with just, a rock or a ball of duct tape or whatever you can make a makeshift ball out of and play in an alley, everywhere else in the world is, in America, like everything else, it is become, do you have the money to pay for practice fees, league fees, et cetera, which adds up quick. Some sports add up faster than others, but they all have something. And
they end up becoming investments, or starting out as investments rather than a hobby and a love, which it should. Right. Then growing into, however dedicated and how good you are, then you invest in getting yourself to those levels. But to start off right away, like you're, a 12-year-old LeBron James going to get drafted first out of the AAU draft, or some, hypothetical crazy thing. But yeah, I think, that's part of it too. Soccer all over the world. Although I would argue though, with basketball, you can kind of have the same idea where even if it's a deflated ball, you could still somewhat, or, in a crate, you could still somewhat simulate playing basketball, so you can get into it that way. But like golf, or hockey, even baseball to a certain degree, you got to have the money to get into it. So maybe like a lacrosse too, something like that. But yeah, you got to get the money to get into it. But some of the baseball, soccer, to some degree, baseball, soccer, basketball, you don't really have to have a lot of money to get into it initially. But then to grow it and take it to next levels, there's got to be some dough in there.
Unless it's a sport like kabaddi, for example. Wink, wink. JD will get the reference on that.
Push your knuckles. What's that, knuckle hopping that we did?
Knuckle hopping. Yeah,
that's free. It's free to knuckle hop. Yeah.
But see, the problem with knuckle hopping is you need to spend the money on the medical bills after you break your hand.
Just have good insurance. It's a Canadian sport, so they got the good insurance up there.
Exactly. Yeah, they got the. In this case,
you guys.
Yeah. And welcome back, Obi.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
And he's gone again. Okay.
And he's gone.
Yeah.
Actually, I was going to start switching over to Formula One, but before we do that, if you're good and 100%, if you want to put in your 2 to 3 to 12 cents, go ahead, please.
I'm going to repeat and push back on some of the stuff, but essentially it was an unbelievable tournament to watch. The guy who, people were asking me all day, who do you think's going to win? And I kept going. It's going to be Zalatoris, and wow, Thomas is coming back. It's going to be Zalatoris, and wow, Thomas is coming back. I had no faith in this rookie pulling it off, and he shocked me for 17 holes. And then on his 18th swing, his driver made Charles Barkley's swing look good. It was a swing that was worse than mine. It was, and good on him for admitting, the nerves got to me. Not many people will do that, but he came out, he said it. And then at that point, it was on Zalatoris to win. Zalatoris also doesn't have a win yet. As you guys said, you took my words. I appreciate that. Talked about how guys don't win any rates faster majors versus their other tournaments, and also how that's probably Tiger based. So I appreciate you guys covering that. And then the one thing I will add is, as I am aware, I heard you guys talking about children, and that's when I kind of got disconnected. One of the things they're doing to keep kids in the game is almost every kids league you go to now. Yes, it's hard. There's a big money barrier, but even for that, it's a frustration barrier that kids don't like. Every kids league is a 4-team scramble. So it's the best ball, the 4 kids, the best ball, the 4 kids, just to keep them interested. Plus, a lot of them use a 15-inch hole as opposed to, I think it's a 6-inch hole. So they are trying to keep kids involved in the game, obviously, because that's how you feed the game. And that's my wrap up of everything I heard you said, and then got disconnected. And it wasn't on my side. It wasn't on Eduardo's side. It was on the app side for anyone who cares. So there we go.
All right.
So we blame Restream on this. And,
Yeah,
okay.
you're just deflecting
all about it. All about it.
deflecting blame. Got it.
All right, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that afterwards. But I think, in respect, if we're good with U.S. Open, I'm sorry, with PGA and with golf in general, if you want to basically take off and run with Formula One, because that was one of the two topics you had.
Yeah.
I feel at this point
the same player as the same guys winning every week.
But yeah, Verstappen basically is 4 out of 6 this year. But Obi, I think basically you deserve to run with this. You've earned it. So fire away.
All right, yeah. So yes, if Verstappen wins, finishes, Verstappen wins, and that did not change this week. The Spanish GP was not quite the event that we had in Miami 2 weeks ago, but it was a much better race. Mm-hmm. During free practice and qualifying, there was almost no stoppages or flags, which gave us a sense that this race may not have any of that. But after qualifying, things looked amazing. 6 spots were all held by Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes was up there in the top 6. So the question was, is Mercedes back? And Hamilton gets off to a good start with a different strategy than everybody else. And before the first lap was over, Magnussen hits him. He gets a flat tire. He goes to the pits. End of first lap, he's 19th of 20th. And here he is on the radio going, hey, should I retire the car? And a lot has been made about that. So this is what I have to say sort of about Hamilton. It's my side on Hamilton. He feels to me like an old comedian. And what I mean by that, you see like a young comedian comes out and they are connected to the everyday person because they are an everyday person. Their job is actually worse than the everyday person. And then they get to the point where they are huge and they're selling out arenas. And maybe the same joke they would have given when they were nobody now feels like they're punching down or they're just disconnected and you can sense it. And they may be observing things, but they're not observing things everybody else is. And I feel that way about Hamilton. Even as not the driver he was, which maybe he is or maybe he isn't, he's still better than so many other guys. But is he willing to, to put his life on the line, which you literally are doing as much as everybody else is, with as much money as he has and as many championships? So maybe that's why he goes, hey, what's better for the team is I retire the car and the car is able to race and I'm okay and everyone's okay. So is that where he is? I'm not sure. The rest of the season may help us go on. Besides Hamilton, we saw the best racing we've seen all year when we had Leclerc pulling ahead of everybody else. Russell ends up in second after some spinouts, and he holds off Perez and his faster Red Bull for countless laps until they decided to let Verstappen pass Perez and give Verstappen a shot at Russell. And Russell held off Verstappen for what felt like 20 laps in wheel-to-wheel racing. Yes, Verstappen's Red Bull once again had a mechanical issue, which sort of helped prevent him from passing Russell. But it was just the best racing I've seen in a year and a half of racing. One guy trying to pass another guy and another guy holding them off. And finally, they changed strategies, and you could see it happen, which is so cool. Like we talk about in football all the time, halftime adjustments, and it takes a real good brain to see it, explain it to us and whatnot. But you didn't need to see it. They pulled Verstappen off the track, put him on faster tires, and said, go catch that guy in these other laps, and you'll catch him and pass him when he goes in. And lo and behold, Verstappen catches up to Russell. His tires are dead. At the same time, Russell has to come off the track to get his tires. Leclerc, his car goes pooey. And then we get what we've been talking about, where the same guy winning the race again for the next 2/3 of a race. The only thing left to watch really was Hamilton. And I know I said, is he still have it? I mean, he had enough to get all the way back from 19th to 4th. And then the last lap, his car started acting up on him. And they told him, let Sykes pass you, get 5th, keep the car alive. It's better than do not finish. Too long, didn't listen. I think Mercedes is back. They really showed what they have. Russell racing like the most talented guy, if not with the fastest car, and Hamilton showing that the car was still really fast and moving it up. So we might have a 3-team fight. And next week when I come on after Monaco, I might not be saying Verstappen won. We'll see.
Well, in this case here, let me ask you this question. Right now, Lewis Hamilton is currently already 64 points behind. That's way, especially forgetting it being Lewis Hamilton for a second. but Lewis Hamilton is currently sitting at 46 points. Is that something, do you think he can turn that around, or is Verstappen just going to basically run away with it if it's not Leclerc?
I don't think it's Hamilton. I think if I'm in Red Bull's garage right now, watching what I've seen, when they're making the experiments on Russell's car first, I think for this year, and it may not be for next year, but for this year, Russell is the lead driver on that team. But I think that team is primarily going to go for the Constructors' Championship and let Leclerc and Verstappen fight it out for the individual championship. But I don't think Hamilton is all but said, I'm not getting the championship this year. If anyone does it on our team, it's Russell. Let's just get this car running and go for which again goes to what I said about that. Like he's still great, but is he willing to put his nose in every situation when it's your life on the line and you have a pretty fine life, going. Accomplishments as great as anybody else is. Like, again, I'm not saying that's what's happening. I don't know enough about the sport and the man, but it's what I am conjecturing is happening.
It's logical. I mean, for somebody where Hamilton is a little older and has won a few Cup championships, where not that he's coasting, but he's definitely. But it makes sense that he's a little more selective about when to turn it up to 11, and also trying to defer to his teammate on it. So I get it, and that Leclerc is stepping up, and it's not just the Verstappen show start to finish. That at least provides a little bit of drama for the time being. We will see how things shake out the rest of the season. I mean, it's only 6 races in. We got a long way to go in the cup chase.
And to your point about Hamilton, like that is why I'm saying the comedian. I don't even know if you asked Hamilton if he would tell you he's not 100% in. Like I think he is. If you ask him, he's 100% in. But just what 100% means to an 8-time champion who's finally lost, had a horrific offseason, an angry offseason, it's different than being the young gun or the defending champ. Sorry to cut you off, Brandon. Please go ahead.
No, you're good. I'm thinking about this listening to you, and based on what I'll say speculating what kind of his mindset is, it sounds very kind of like where LeBron's head is right now.
I was thinking similarly.
While yes, it's inarguable that Lewis Hamilton is more the Michael Jordan of that sport rather than the LeBron of that sport, I still think just at that top level, when you get to that level at a certain age, you start to kind of, all right, you think about things. So just off what you're saying, that's how I'm interpreting it. Now I'm going to ask a stupid question. Can he just make the car faster? That is my stupid question.
Let's go faster.
And it's not a stupid question because Mercedes, so the cars this year, because they rechanged all the rules, plus how the cars had to be built, plus because an American bought the sport, they put in a cap on how much you can pay to develop the car. So you can pay your drivers as much as you want, you can pay your crew as much as you want, but there's a salary cap on building it. So all of the cars this year, when they started, they were bouncing down the road, like bouncing. And Mercedes cars were bouncing more than Ferrari and Red Bull. And that is what they have invested their money into, getting rid of the bouncing they seem to finally have. So, yes, now they have to put the money into, like you say, it's not a dumb question, making the car faster because their car is clearly faster than everybody else on the track other than maybe McLaren and Alfa Romeo and then the 2 other teams we're talking about, Ferrari and Red Bull. So, their car is faster, but it definitely has more to go because they've been spending their early 6 races getting the car to stop jumping down the track while everyone else is tweaking it to be faster.
Nice.
Great question. Yeah, you think it's it. Nah,
yeah.
It answers my question right there. I'm good as gold now.
That's interesting that they have almost like a salary cap on the cars themselves to try and prevent, although it's only it's only a handful of teams in general, that can even compete, I believe. I'm not that familiar with it, but I know it's the same few teams, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, that they just have, that they have multiple cars in it. So it's not like it's already well beyond the point of like an individual driver or team. It's all, big conglomerates, which I know I believe that's the case throughout motorsports, whether it's F1, NASCAR, IndyCar, all of them, it's all the same stuff.
I think one of the keys to wanting to drop, so what I'm understanding about the cap is the teams that spent a lot, it's hurting more than the teams that spent a little. Some of the teams that spend a little still can't even get to the cap, while your bigger teams are like, how am I supposed to only use this much money? But the other goal is to get more big money teams in because their losses are mitigated. So can we get Ford back in? Can we get Porsche back in? Can we get the other big car names back in? Because if you're new to the sport, you don't know Williams Racing. If you're old to the sport, you do. Or when you get into it, you learn who they are. But if it said Ford on there, you would know who they are. You know kind of who Alfa Romeo is. Red Bull, it's just being Red Bull. But Alpine's not a car company, but they have a team. So can we get some more teams? And, I mean, they are open to more teams. The biggest one is Andretti Racing is making a very public attempt to get in. And I think they do want to get 2 more cars on the grid somehow. So we'll see if more cars.
Yeah, but like Honda used to have a huge presence in F1, and they practically disappeared. Yeah.
So Honda makes the Red Bull engine, but they don't advertise that their name's on it, right? Like Red Bull just like bought the right to just not even have Honda's name on the engine anymore. So absolutely. Honda's like, sure, we'll just make it for a fee. We're not investing any money. Just pay us to make the engine. So absolutely.
I mean, it's more of a license.
As long as Honda's getting their money, that means
licensing.
I think a lot of it has to do with people just. I don't know that people like. I know that with NASCAR at one time had the highest customer loyalty. If you were a fan of whoever, you bought the products on their car. I wonder if with F1 it doesn't roll over the same way, especially with the car brand. Like, I love to watch Mercedes drivers, but I'm not going to buy a Mercedes, so the investment doesn't pay off, especially when it started to skyrocket the way it did.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't think that there's really as much brand loyalty to the cars themselves in racing, particularly not in F1. At least in NASCAR, like the cars, at least in theory, are similar to ones you can go out and buy, but not, not really. But like that's, what the roots are of NASCAR was that, it was a car that you souped up yourself to run away from, as moonshiners to run away from the revenuers, and you could drive on the dirt track on Sunday and then, drive to work on Monday in the same car. That was
professional Fast and Furious.
That's
right.
Basically.
So it's different from F1 in that regard, but the sports in general, motorsports and, NASCAR, F1, it's all been kind of homogenized with just the same few players, the same few manufacturers. Like I believe at one point Toyota was making all of the cars in NASCAR. I don't know if that's still the case, but, just where there is no brand differential because there only is one car, that everybody's driving. You have a little more freedom in F1, I believe, but it's not the same as it used to be. As far it's also not as big of a moneymaker in marketing for the car manufacturers themselves. I mean, yes, it's bragging rights, and they'll still, if they win races, they'll still drop that in their commercials, but it's not an integral part of their marketing strategy like it was for Ford and Chevy and NASCAR for so many years.
Agreed. Definitely not as big of a marketing. Scott, I can see you trying to jump in. What do you got?
No. Actually, no. No, I actually had an itch on my nose, but I can jump in if you want me to. If you're feeling like basically that I'm being neglected.
Oh, we try not to neglect you, Scott. I think what you say is all 100% right there, JD. As I talk over Scott now, I think the marketing fact is long gone, especially in F1. But they're still marketing on the cars, but they're not marketing the car brands. And you definitely have companies like Ferrari making engines for other companies on the racetrack, Mercedes making their engines for other cars, and then the Red Bull engine, which is made by Honda but not called Honda anymore, in other cars. So it will be interesting as the price control comes in, whether some of the big car brands will re-enter F1 to get some of the bragging rights.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I've talked enough about something that excites me. I'd love to hear some of you guys talk about the NHL. Scott, I'm going to give it to you to let that happen.
Actually, I was going to say what I'm going to do is actually thank you for turning it over to me, but I'm actually probably going to be turning it over to Brandon because unlike myself and Mr. Walker, there is a team in the tri-state area that doesn't suck. And him being a loyal Ranger fan, a team that granted is down 2-1 right now with Game 4 tonight, they have a chance to even the series now. You know, this is a team that has made a very, very fast turnaround, you know, in the post-Henrik Lundqvist era, and much faster turnaround than some New Jersey-based hockey teams are going. And I know Brandon, being a Ranger fan that he is, give me your thoughts, man.
Yeah, I think the first two games was definitely a gut punch. The Game 3, you come back. I think they have a good chance tying the series. In all honesty, though, most of my attention has been with my Heat that are. We'll talk about them in a little while, and the Mets. So the Rangers have taken a bit of a step behind. So I have kind of through peripheral vision been paying attention to them as much as I can. But I really think what they did in the last series against Pittsburgh. I think, being down in this series, I don't think they should be panicking. I think they should kind of be steadying the ship, stick to what they were good at all season. And I think coming to this game, tie it up, and then we got a whole series over, starting over again, basically, with a best of 3 at that point. And I think, you still have, home. Do you have home ice? No, you don't have home ice in this.
No, the Rangers are the lower seed in this series.
Right. So
home ice, but they have game 4 at home tonight.
Right.
So if they can even things up, then we'll go from there.
Yeah, obviously getting past Carolina, you're going to have to win on the road, which they hadn't done yet. But I think they can, even if they steal. If you can win this game and really pull some momentum, go into Carolina, and then come back to MSG for a Game 6, with the conference finals on the line to an ultimately jacked up crowd, I think it's a very enticing situation. But again, it's a period at a time, it's a possession at a time, and you got to stick to what you're good at. Don't overthink things. Get back to Rangers hockey, and I think they can tie this series up and make this a whole new series.
And with the Rangers in particular, it's go ahead, Scott.
No, please. It's okay.
With the Rangers in particular, as Shesterkin goes, so go the Rangers. Where the Rangers are very much a goalie and defense dependent team. I mean, they do score, but really, for much of the regular season and especially in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, when Igor has a bad game, the Rangers usually get waxed, and that's holding to form. So if they can hold serve at home tonight, then they're in good shape. But going back to Carolina down 3-1, I would be a tall task to say the least. And whoever wins this series has Tampa in the East Finals, who swept the President's Trophy winning Florida Panthers, which that sentence in itself is weird to say. The Tampa swept out the Panthers in the second round, still trying to going for their 3rd straight cup. Nobody has won 3 straight cups since the Islanders won 4 straight in the early 80s. But fun little footnote to me of this series was through a scheduling quirk. They played Game 3 and Game 4 in Tampa 2 nights in a row. They played Sunday afternoon and then Game 4 last night. Tampa winning both to close out the series. But Sunday night after Game 3, there were multiple players from the Panthers that were seen partying at Tampa strip clubs until well after 3 a.m., which was a little mini controversy. The Panthers coach, tried to blow it off on Monday as, fake news, essentially. and saying, but he specifically used the term, that isn't true. Check your sources. And there was some, I guess, a sports radio show or something in Tampa where one of the radio personalities tweeted back at him saying, I've checked with my strip club sources, and this is true. Which, if that isn't the most Florida sentence that I have ever heard, I need to check with my strip club sources. Perfect for Tampa.
That almost sounds like a Vegas comment, though. Really,
I was going to go with more like Hotlanta than Vegas or Florida.
Tampa, Atlanta, Vegas, Miami, all the strip club hotspots. But that I think is peak Tampa right there. I've already consulted my strip club sources.
I'd like to think Miami has a little more culture than that, though. The rest of the state it's another story.
The difference is there's other things to do in Miami. Tampa, not so much.
Yeah. You got the Tropicana Field down there. You got St. Pete. You got dolphins off the water in St. Pete. I've seen them down there. It's actually really nice. Tampa's nice though.
I have a friend who moved from really nowhere, Florida, to Tampa, and he had more to do with nowhere, Florida. I'll just say that.
Really?
He wasn't. Yeah.
Was he originally by that place for that Alan Jackson song?
No,
the Chattahoochee, I think it is.
No, he was in one of the. He was in the area that is more known for old age retirement homes, like Delray type area.
Okay.
And then he moved to Tampa and was not impressed with he's not been impressed with his Tampa dwelling.
So he was just too young to do the activities at that point.
Exactly.
Right. He was too young for pickleball.
Like him problem.
Those places are hopping from what I've heard.
Dude, my wife's uncle, is president of the condo association down there, and the amount of people that want to get a spot down there, it's insane because everybody from up here every winter just flocks down there to try and move. So the prices are insane. But the only thing I'm going to say on this, as far as the Rangers go, maybe we'll wrap it out at that point, is if the Rangers can win tonight at home, they're guaranteeing a Game 6 on a Saturday night. And so for Carolina, this is a lot of ways panic mode. Because not only for the fact that you need to basically have the opportunity to lock this series down at home in Game 5, but also whatever games you have to play extra is giving an advantage to a rested Tampa Bay team. That's a Tampa team right now that's swept, and they are going to be rested, and they have playoff experience out the wazoo. So every single game this goes longer is further and further advantage Tampa.
So I'll ask this question, right now in the NBA, it feels like we're going to be looking at a rested Golden State against a tired Eastern Conference winner. That's going to be. And if it wasn't for how physically brutal this series is, I would always, unless I really feel like that 4-team, 5-team player team is a much better team, say, hey, that rust is going to be there. Does that exist in hockey? I mean, the NBA, this one series, these two teams, I'm not sure either of them will have 4 guys left to play. But in general, you feel confident if you go 6 games that you're not rusty. Is hockey going to have that?
Hockey absolutely has that. It is a little different than baseball and basketball as far as rust in a 7-game series, but it absolutely comes into play. There is, as far as I'm concerned, there is nothing more intense than playoff hockey. And it's a much more even playing field where there's actually upsets, and it's in the NHL playoffs, and you don't see anything remotely interesting until the second round in the NBA, especially now that they've added another level of what was that Brandon's term, April silliness, for the stupid plans. Yeah, but you have teams but out of the 8 teams left, 7 actually in the NHL, you could make a case for any of these teams winning. All of them had over 100 points during the regular season. You have the Edmonton-Calgary Battle of Alberta in the second round out west.
9-6 in the first game too. 15 goals combined.
Right, I saw that. I thought it was a baseball score, and then. and did a
And
double
football
take.
score in some cases.
Right. So, and then you have Colorado up 3-1 over St. Louis in the other West Series, and all of Canada is riding on the Battle of Alberta. With Canada's game, yet no Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup in almost 30 years. So their hopes remain on whoever wins that Edmonton-Calgary series, and which is shaping up to be quite the good one. And if you like scoring, just like the Battle of Alberta series it's almost like those 80s playoff series between the Flames and the Oilers, with the Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Paul Coffey Flames, and then you had the Doug Gilmour, Brett Hull Flames that won the Cup in '89. Those playoff battles were insane. So you're starting to get shades of that nostalgia in play with that series as well. So in addition to the Rangers series, that looks like the most intriguing series still going on.
Fair. All right, so we got a little less than 10 minutes left, so I do want to swing this over to Brendan's other favorite sport and his other favorite team. We're not talking the one with the jersey he's wearing, but we talked about Miami a little bit. You said you have been focusing a lot of attention on your Heat. Want to roll with that?
Yes, I have. Obviously, the Heat are my baby in the NBA. And this series with the Celtics, I said it was going to be a very old school style physical game. You would be hard pressed to find most of these games in the 100s. And maybe you get some 102s, 103s, 105s up to there, but you're going to get low scoring games. This series is very similar to the Boston-Milwaukee series where both teams alternated between having a good to great game, letdown, good to great game, letdown. And it's very much the same thing with this series. But that game 3 in Boston for Miami to win, I think was a great, I don't want to say confidence booster, but a confidence reinforcer. They had no Jimmy Butler in the second half. Tyler Hero did not play well and did not play late in that second half. Bam had finally broke out and had the game of the playoffs. So game 4, if you watch the playoffs year after year, that's going to be a letdown, especially the way Boston looked. You come out and it was like 20-1, it was like 18-1, and at that point you're like, okay, it's just going to be a bad game, which I am not as kind of distressed about, because you could just look. It was a crap game from the start. That is what it is. It's 2-2 now. Best of 3 now. You still have home court, but you got to come back. And the best right now is who can play the best consistently. That's it. Be over the next 2 to 3 games, depending on how well you can play. And I really think, look, I'm still going to take Miami in 7, but this Boston team is a good team. I would not be surprised. I mean, I definitely think Golden State is coming out of the West. Even if they lose game 4, they're going to go home for a game 5 and do the whole, gentleman's sweep. And I think you come back to the Eastern Conference Series, you're going to get 6 to 7 games. And then, going back to Obi's point, where you're going to get a well-rested Golden State in the finals. And I think at that point, I would be hard-pressed probably not to pick them. But I'm not going to count out the Heat if they make it, or the Celtics, whoever gets past one of these other 2 teams. But this is a hard-pressed battle. So I just, if Heat fans out there, let's just take a deep breath. Everything is okay. Come back home tomorrow night for a game 5, and we have a best of 3 here on out, and we'll see you in the finals, hopefully.
The thing with Miami is their injuries adding up the way that they have been. They 5 or 6 players on the
everybody's in and out with injuries.
Yeah,
Smart has missed half the series.
I think somebody said of the Wednesday game, or several people said of the Wednesday game, they went to a basketball game and a football game broke out. This has been, as to Brandon's point, this has been.
I knew it was going to be
90s basketball. This is some violent basketball, and based on the makeup of these are not finesse teams. As good as Jason Tatum is, he's not a truly finesse player. As good as Jimmy Butler is, he is a hard-nosed, to me, he's bigger and stronger, and this is a compliment. Allen Iverson, that's who he is. He gets in there, messes up with people. Marcus Smart is as violent as they come, and I mean that complimentary, but that's the kind of player he is. And Bam is everybody on these teams, these are hard-hitting dudes. And so that's how they're playing, and that's how they're going to play. And they probably have if either of these teams are healthy, I think they can take Golden State. But I just don't know if they're going to come sprinting out of 6 games, or limping out on the third leg out of these games, and how quickly they're going to get up to speed for the new finesse team that they're about to play. One thing that team has is experience. That team has seen every situation, including losing when up 3-1. So they know everything there is to know about NBA Finals basketball there.
I think, though, either one of these teams, Heat or Celtics, you can go into that series against Golden State and play physical, something they had not gotten in this playoffs. They have not faced a physical team in the West. I think Boston or Miami can get into that series, make them uncomfortable. Look, they're still going to throw up 3-pointers, and you're still going to get some Steph shimmies here and there, but that's to be expected. I think if you can make Golden State, whichever team you are, make them as uncomfortable as possible and really stick to your guns and play your ball, you really have a good chance. But I'm still going to stick with my Heat in 7. So,
okay,
nice. So, probably have to wrap this up. But JD, if you have a couple things you wanted to say real quick about soccer, 30, 45 seconds, by all means, please.
So, in Major League Soccer, you had the Philadelphia Union beating the Portland Timbers 2-0 the other night, breaking another oddity streak, 5 straight draws. And they had a loss before that. So that was the first actual win that they had in a month. And throughout all of that, they've managed to stay first in the East in MLS, 1 point ahead of NYCFC in second. And you had in the Premier League, you had Manchester City beating Aston Villa 3-2, coming back from 2 goals down and scoring 2 goals in the last 15 minutes to win it. And that was their 4th EPL league title in 5 years. Once again, stealing the hearts from Liverpool.
We're going to probably do a lot more on soccer, I think, next week, both European, U.S., and maybe a little bit of Russian soccer as well. Maybe I'm thinking maybe tagging a little bit in there. But we got to wrap this up at this point. I'm Scott. Thank you to Mr. J.D. Walker, Mr. Obi Spencer, and, of course, Mr. Brandon Kay. 7 p.m. tonight, we have Tales from the Film Set. We were breaking down the 2 shows that are being released on Friday, Obi-Wan, the miniseries, and Stranger Things 4. We're going to be talking about that. That'll be me, Davion, and Ryan. So check that out at that point on the Tales from the Film Set side. For now, I'm Scott, JD, Obi, and Brandon, and Brandon's Mets. Can't deny that team. That is a phenomenal team right now. Very dangerous team. Be excited if you're a Mets fan. Be excited if you're a Mets fan. Be afraid if you're a fan of any of the other teams in the NL East. Until next time, take care. Be awesome.